Hi, my name's Keith Cooper from Ott-lite Images, and this is one of a short series of videos I'm doing about ways of helping your photography, getting over that sort of feeling of being stuck, and ways that don't entail spending a lot of money. More to the point, ways that don't entail buying a new camera. A lot of people think, oh, I need a new camera, better photos. Whereas many people know this is complete nonsense. The camera you've got is almost always good enough for what you need. And when it really isn't good enough for what you need, and you can specify why, then that's the time perhaps to buy a new camera. But anyway, just a few things here. If you have a printer, learn to print properly. These are quite large. That's an A3 plus, that's an A2. Now I'm assuming that if you've got an A2 printer sitting around, you probably do know how to use it. But the point is that a lot of people, they get printers and then never really make the most of them. So if you've got a printer, learn to make better use of it. Print. If you've got a setup and you want to edit your photos, editing your photos, learning to edit the photo, even fairly basic edits, is a great way of improving your photos. Even if you just show them on a screen, it's not that expensive in terms of you can get cheaper editing software, such as things like Affinity Photo, which for many things I could comfortably replace Photoshop with Affinity Photo. I don't need all the fancy features you get in the modern version of Photoshop. Indeed, the version of Photoshop running on this laptop here is Photoshop CS6, so quite ancient, perfectly good. Now, at a point, it may not support the raw files from a camera I'm using, but there are ways around that. If you've got set up like this, calibrate your monitor. Now these do cost a bit of money. This is an i1 Display Pro, Spider devices as well, but the whole point is calibrate your monitor. The improvement there just will reflect back in all of your photography. So another thing about experimenting, adapted lenses. Much easier these days. Get an old lens and an adapter, needn't cost that much. Go out and experiment. Digital costs you nothing apart from your time. There's no film to use up or anything. I've learnt a lot through this, and in fact this photograph here, this is the interior of a disk drive. A few years ago I started experimenting with a homemade lens. And this is a lens that was mounted backwards with an adapter so that it became a macro lens. Now I've got articles about this sort of stuff if you're interested in it, but with details of what I did and how to do it. But macro lens, I just went out taking photographs of stuff. Now I personally have got no interest in insects, fungi, all the staples of macro. Whenever you see people talk about macro photography, they tend to talk about fungi, bugs, whatever. I'm not really that interested in it. I'll do them out of, because they make a nice picture, but not. I just had a go at photographing stuff, and such as the inside of this disk drive. Now, this is slightly large technically for what people might call macro. The stuff that I was photographing when I did the experiments were things like the read-write head, which is the bit that writes the data to the disk. And there's metal, shiny metal bit here, that's the disk, it spins round. There are several of these heads, they write the data to the hard disk. This is a DUF one. If you've had computers for any length of time, you'll find DUF drives. Unscrew the top, look what's inside them, all kinds of interesting things. And a challenge to photograph. Now, why do I mention this? Well, not that long after experimenting some of this, somebody contacted me, a business, and said, we've got some electronic components need photographing, we're having a job getting photos done, can you do it? And I said, well, okay, send me one to experiment with, I'll send you some photos and see what you think. That was 13 years ago, and a major semiconductor company is still a client of ours. Now, I've spent money on lenses since then because I had something to spend the money on. I had a reason for doing it. But it all started with just experimenting and just deciding, oh, wonder what I can do with this. Cost me very little. as I say, monitor calibration. If you do print, then one of the key things that people have difficulty with is evaluating prints. The absolute worst thing you can ever do is put a print against a screen and compare them directly. It doesn't work. There are all kinds of reasons, and I've written about this and done some videos about printing. Excuse me. Here is a print viewing light that I use. Now, you can buy expensive print viewing cabinets and setups. This one is based on, I think it's called an Ott-lite, that's O-T-T, and light, L-I-T-E. This one is branded by Colour Confidence in the UK, and when it opens up, it's a light. Gives a good indication of version of daylight. No idea what it will look like on this video. I'll use this conveniently placed copy of my book on tilt-shift lenses, which I'm obviously promoting. There we go. And that gives a strong, even light that I can use for print evaluation. So, monitor calibration, reasonable quality monitor, doesn't need to be a top-end one. Consistent lighting to evaluate things. And the Ott-lite just closes there. It's called a Grafilite, and I have a review of this I wrote a few years ago. It sits on my desk, on one end of the desk. Whenever I need a light, flip it up. If you want to cover a larger area, get two of them. They're not terribly expensive. So one here, another one here would give you quite a nice print viewing area. One other thing, put a neutral background underneath when you're doing things like that, because it does make a difference. You don't want a brightly coloured background if you're looking at colour. So that's that. So if I take this book, now it's quite bright here. The chances of me getting this to work well on a video are minimal, but there we go. Well, you get the idea. These are quite nifty things. They're not expensive. So just a few ideas to just try and do something a little different, because that's the real key about photography. You tend to get a bit stuck. Oh, I've done that, I don't feel like doing that, I've done that. Try something different. I've done another video, hence why some of the books are piled up here, about getting inspiration from second-hand books and the like. However you do it, go out, take more photos. And remember that almost certainly you do not need a new camera. You can tell I don't sell cameras and lenses and that, but anyway, hopefully things like this are of use. Please subscribe to the channel if you find it helpful. Leave a question or something, because quite often from the questions are what I get ideas for other videos that people might find interesting, or articles. So thank you very much.